it forces you to like clean up your act. And like even right now, I say and way more. And now that I'm on this with you, it's like forces me to clean up very quickly. And we see the same results with people. As soon as they listen to one recording, they're hearing things that they don't even realize they're saying, missing places where you're not responding to the customer's real concern at all. And you start to get a lot better at doing those things without even thinking, the more you start to see where you're messing up in those conversations.
All right, everybody. This is Sam Taggart, your host at the Door to Door podcast. And I have a couple announcements as always. My challenge to everybody is go out there and spend more time training. And, everybody hits me up on Instagram. And if you don't, I'm okay with you just sending me DMs and like, hey, I need help with this. And I try to be as responsive as I can when it comes to Instagram. And a lot of the people ask me, they're like, dude, I'm stuck here. And I go, well, how much time did you spend training? And are you resourceful enough? One, you're asking me, so I'm a resource, right? But I only have so much time and energy to answer questions. But that's why we put training modules. That's why we put events. That's why we put things out there to help you. So we have our online platform, Door to Door University. If you haven't checked that out, with 1,000+ videos on how to recruit, how to lead, how to train, how to, XYZ. And then there's your manager, and then there's your company content. And then there's your, it's like, how much time today did you spend training? And if you haven't today, get off your butt and get out there and start training. And that leads me into this guest who I'm actually really excited, Joe Jordan, who is the co-founder and CEO of Siro, which is a technology platform to help train and give communication analytics to sales conversations, and is really disrupting in the door-to-door space. So, a lot of times, you wonder, okay, how do I know if my reps are good or not? And how do I know what they're not good at? And they're like, yeah, I just can't seem to sell this week. You've got two reasons. They aren't working or they suck. One of those two reasons. So we're going to work on maybe your rep sucks and how do you help them conversations with Joe. And so Joe, talk to us a little bit about the journey of Siro, what it does, and then we'll dive into better training elements to help our people get better.
Sure. So first of all, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. So my background, I didn't get started in door-to-door sales. I got started in what's basically the next closest thing. So I sold cut-go knives for vector marketing. And I didn't expect to like it. I was coming from an engineering background, but I ended up loving it, being pretty good at it. And I fell in love with the fact that my income and my experience depended only on my skill and my effort. And I had an amazing experience. I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing now without the risk tolerance and the rejection tolerance that I acquired as a sales rep selling knives to moms. And
we're teaching street smarts, which is high school and lower, because you did it probably right out of high school, right? You probably got in pretty early, because they target those kind of graduating high school kids to teach them that skill, like grit, rejection, getting your face kicked in. And Cutco is by far the best organization in sales that does a good job at training the younger class, hands down. So props.
Yeah, it was an incredible experience. And I see so many people, really smart people, who aren't doing as well as they can in the economy because they aren't willing to take risks, face rejection, and they don't know how to sell. And it's such a vital skill that you can only learn by actually doing it and having the feeling of your income depending on you going out to work and doing a good job that day. And so I fell in love with that experience. And the next summer I was invited out to become a sales manager. And that summer we launched about 186 sales reps. We finished in the top 2% of teams in the company in my first summer. So all the numbers said we did a great job, but I still personally felt like I'd failed as a manager because I wasn't able to deliver the mentorship that I told my reps I'd give them in their interview. When people asked me for help, lots of times I didn't have the time to help them. And when I did, I had no idea how. because I didn't know what was going on in their sales conversations. We knew whether or not they were working. That wasn't the hard part. It was the do they suck part, right? We call it at bats times batting average. And it was that batting average part that was really difficult to address. And that's why we founded Siro. And the whole idea with Siro is to allow sales reps to take their sales coaches, their sales managers with them into every conversation they do. So they get access to world-class mentorship in every conversation from anywhere in the world.
So how does that work? Walk me through it.
Sure. So in the door-to-door context, you download Siro, you tap door-to-door mode, and you start knocking. And what Siro will do is record your conversations in the background while you're knocking, and automatically separate each conversation into its own recording within Siro. Then once those conversations are recorded, Siro will transcribe the entire thing to text and bookmark the most important moments, where you're making the first impression, handling buying questions, overcoming objections, smoke screens, covering pricing or closing the appointment if you're in solar, these sorts of things. That way, when you or a coach is reviewing them later, you can jump right to the action rather than having a sea of 10 to 15 minute recordings that are difficult to get through at scale. And so the whole idea is to make sales mistakes as easy to respond to as a text message. You jump into where your rep needs help, go to that moment, and then respond with a voice comment right on the transcript. And then the rep will see everything you saw when you left that feedback.
Love that. That's awesome. And walk us through some of the outcomes or implementation or results you're seeing as people start to use this.
Sure. So we did the math for a couple of pest control guys this past summer. And for sales managers, the biggest impact you're going to feel in your day-to-day right away is time savings. As opposed to shadowing, coaching through Siro is gonna save you about 10x the time, which means you can get done 10x the coaching, and you don't have to take any of your own time off the doors. So before you even start to account for the improvements that your sales reps are making, you're going to start to see it hit your bottom line just from having more time back on your own doors and in your own sales. So you can truly lead from the front and be the mentor at the same time. Then from the sales rep perspective, we're working on a couple of case studies now, but the preliminary results that we've heard so far anecdotally are, hey, we've seen an exponential increase in the progress of our reps' sales and their effectiveness. And, obviously exponential means something very specific mathematically, but that just shows how much improvement these guys are seeing in their sales conversations. You can jump into the data and predict with a pretty high accuracy when their sales reps started recording in Siro, because in the next few days, their number of accounts per day will double or triple.
Wonder what, if people recorded every one of their pitches, do you think they sell, knowing that they are recording and somebody might watch it? Do you think their sales ability goes up just simply from that understanding?
Definitely. And this is one of the things that we've heard, especially from managers who are recording themselves more just to lead from the front. They find themselves sort of going back to the book a little bit more and getting better outcomes almost inadvertently.
Yeah, because you have to go right back to fundamentals, because you're like, dude, you're sucking because you're jumping away from your fundamentals. I think that's an interesting concept in and of itself. Like, somebody is watching, and I have to pay more close attention to being, just on. It's getting recorded. I got to be on. It's like when I go out and sell with companies, right? Like I go out, like Steven called me today. He's out, believe this or not, this is hilarious. Literally just called me, and he's in Dallas, Texas, because we just did that training out in Dallas, right? And we had like 400 and something salespeople come to our rogue sales event, right? And he's out knocking in Dallas today, and he's like, guess what? You never believe it, but there's some other dudes in the same neighborhood that went to the sales training last week, and they're like, wait, are you selling against me right now, Steven? He's like, yep. He's like, go easy on us. He's like, as long as you get to him first. Like, he's like, and it was just funny. But I was thinking about Steven though, like he's out there having people shadow him right now. And if there's people there on his shoulder, he has to be on. Like a live person, he's showing off, they're paying him to look good. And there's an element of, I have to sell at a higher like precision. And I feel like just Siro alone would make me be like, okay, I'm being recorded. Like I'm impeccable with my word. I'm more integrity. I think you're less likely to probably bend the lines a little bit. You're higher precision. I think that alone is like a weird byproduct that you might have anticipated that, but I'm like, that alone in my opinion is like worth it. Keep going. Sorry.
It forces you to like clean up your act. And like even right now, I say and way more. And now that I'm on this with you, it's like forces me to clean up very quickly. And we see the same results with people. As soon as they listen to one recording, they're hearing things that they don't even realize they're saying, missing places where you're not responding to the customer's real concern at all. And you start to get a lot better at doing those things without even thinking, the more you start to see where you're messing up in those conversations.
Yeah. So let's break it down to the manager. So they get this recording, it's transcribed out. It's taking the key elements of the sales action, as you call it. What tips, obviously you manage salespeople, you've trained a lot. What are some best ways to give feedback and coach your reps on improving those pitches and stuff like that?
Sure. So the number one thing that I would say is you want to give both the sales concept and then the practical example that follows that concept. So when you jump to a specific moment in Siro where you hear a rep making a mistake, maybe the sales rep was asked a buying question and they responded to it without following up with another question or a close and lost control of the conversation. So at that point, you want to explain why it's important to maintain control of the conversation, the impact that has, and the concepts of how to do it, and then follow that up with a practical example and just role play how you might have handled it differently. I think it's important, especially for the more analytical reps, that they understand the why behind the what and give a real example so they know how to apply it in their very next conversation.
Love that. Have you noticed reps, like let's say a rep is really just not applying the feedback, right? You're like, dude, I've trained you 7 times and you still suck. What do? You know what I mean? It's like, I don't know how much more I can keep telling you say it wrong. Like at those times, like it's just kind of like, all right, you're a lost cause. Like, is there an easier way to deliver it? Like at what point is like, you can get a rep to be like, free? Because I've noticed, I've been there. I'm like, I have exactly the scripts, I have the freaking videos, I have the this, yet you still somehow manage to say everything opposite of what I'm telling you to say. What do you do?
Sure. Yeah. So I think there are 2 reasons why that generally happens. The first is that the sales rep, for some reason, doesn't feel like the script matches their style or is somehow not them, and they therefore feel like it would be somewhat inauthentic to do so. And so the number one thing you can do there is find someone on the sales team whose style matches that rep, right? There are some things that work for people who are very confident and very brave that someone else would never be able to pull off.
Mine and your selling style are probably very different.
Probably, yeah.
But it doesn't make it better or worse. Like, honestly, like I'm jealous sometimes of your selling style because you could probably sell to an engineer type person so much better. The way you speak, the way that you're coming at it, you're poor, for me, I'm just like funny and jokey and you'll like me. For you, you can target such a better decision maker. And I'm like, ah. Anyway, keep going. I'm just
Yeah, and that's my trouble sometimes, is like breaking the ice, right? And making the other person feel more comfortable. So there's pros and cons to different styles for sure. And this struck me so hard the first time I went out and shadowed a couple of different guys using Siro. The first person I watched his sales style and I was like, wow, I was good at Cutco, but there's no way that I could do door-to-door sales and do what this guy is doing. Then an hour later, I was shadowing someone else and I thought, oh my God, I could totally do that. And I wanted to start knocking doors, just say, give me the script, I want to try this. And so you want to find someone who matches the sales rep style and show them live examples of how they're doing in real conversations. And this is one of the things we try to do with Siro in the training library is, it'll accumulate your reps' sales, recordings of your reps' sales over time, so that your reps can sort of latch onto people who they find as role models to them, and apply what they're hearing in their sales conversations. So I would say the first reason people don't do what you're telling them is lack of a role model they can see themselves emulating. The second thing is lack of accountability. And the number one way to do that is like either you're out there with them or you listen to their recordings. And if after you address those two things, they're still not doing it, then it's probably someone that's going to hurt the culture and the team, and you need to focus on other sales reps.
I love that. Yeah, it's so good. So good. They need a role model. And it's so funny. People come up to me all the time and they're like, Sam, like you're my role model, this and that. And then there's people, I was even just thinking about this. There's like other industry door-to-door trainer dudes, and they're like drinking their Kool-Aid. And I was like wondering, I was like, drink my Kool-Aid, what the hell? Like, you know what I mean? Like I get kind of like little, what's the word? Like jealous or my ego will kick in and I'm like, why don't you like and resonate with me? And I have to come to my senses and be like, a Sam's a Sam, and certain people are going to resonate with Sam. And some people are going to be like, Sam's a freaking clown and I resonate with this dude. And I'm like, great. Because there's an element of style that you need to understand. And I have to be cognizant of that and say, I can't force my style. And can I adapt to their style? Oh, do you want me to show you what it would look like for you, Joe? All right, everybody, and I put on a little bit more of my engineer sales hat on, and I adapt for you instead of saying, well, just sell like I do. And it's like, that feels inauthentic and you're not going to see me as your role model. I love that. And I think coaches and managers need to make sure they're aware of that. Which I know I failed to do because I lost all my reps my first year managing. I lost all my reps the second year managing. It's like, why does nobody stay with me?
Yep.
It wasn't until year 3, 4, 5, that I started to be like, oh, I don't lose reps. They stay with me. They're loyal. They love me. And it took me a minute to be like, okay, I need to figure out how to like either recruit people like me or understand different dynamics and personalities.
Totally. Yeah. And the last thing I would say about that is it's not just something for the reps who are struggling. It might actually be even more important for the reps who have sort of just gotten their footing, they're self-sustaining, because the moment that like every little bit you get better, the next incremental improvement gets more difficult. You improve the fastest at the beginning and people start slowing down. And the people who become world-class are the people who double down when it gets more difficult. And it's at those times that it's the most important to introduce that person to someone they can see themselves becoming, who's crushing it at your company, inspiring them and giving them a vision of what they could become.
Dude, okay, so check this out. What about like an anchor? So, people talk about sales slump, right? And they're like, I even talked to a guy yesterday on the phone. No, it was Saturday. Saturday, I go snowboarding. This is who it is. His name's Cody. I was like, hey, dude, he's a client. I was like, let's just take you out snowboarding. He's like, really? I was like, yeah. We're on the way up to the thing. And he's like, dude, I'm just because I have a guy training at the sales summit that did 240 solar installs. And he's like, dude, we were talking on the phone while we were driving up there. He's like, wait a minute, this guy did 240? I was like, yeah. And he's like, I've closed 28 out of my last 30 demos. And I go, that's pretty damn good as far as a closing percentage. Where Cody's over here, he's like, dude, I just lost my mojo. It's like, I can't close anymore. I don't know why. I keep getting callbacks and freaking not interested. And, and he's like, I used to be way better. And so we started to analyze this. And I go, what if you had recorded you in your prime and been able to re-anchor back to that you in your prime moment and be like, oh, I see what I was doing. Like, there's the difference. I just forget to put this one question in there. I forgot I've stopped doing this little one-line hook sinker. You know what I mean? Like, And I think there's an element of like memory and muscle memory and anchoring memories. Cause it's like, I think of like photos now since smartphones exist versus I can't pull up a picture of me as a little kid. Like I'd have to go to a photo album or scrapbook that my mom put together forever ago. And I don't remember half my life. I can bring back memories so fast to like all my life because of the photos we have on Google Photo. And I could go right to a date. I could go right to an experience. I could go right to a location. Yet, why not anchor stuff like that back into like high performance of my sales career, right? Like, what do you say on that? Like, I think that just came to me.
Yeah, absolutely. This is actually one of the things that we're designing right now is a feature that's basically either Snapchat memories or Instagram highlights for your sales.
Yeah.
And so whenever you mark a conversation as a sale, it'll basically be, saved to these reels. So you could go back and check out where you were at your best at any time. And then if that's public, you can also check out where other people who you find as role models are doing their best in their sales conversations. Because when you see someone in a leaderboard crushing it, it can be a little bit intimidating. Like, what the hell are they doing to get those results? I don't even think I could ever do that. But the moment you get into the actual audio of what actually made those numbers happen and you feel like you're there, you start to see that, whatever top sales rep that's crushing it like that is human. They're just like you, and you can do that also. And so it's one of the most powerful inspirational tools as well as educational tools that you can pick up.
That's why we do a lot of this hidden camera stuff with the D2DU. We'll go in and film live with a camera, like real live pitches, and put it in our online platform because it's the same concept. It's like you'll watch and you'll be like, Sam's kind of a dork. Like, oh, Sam just stayed in the pocket longer than I would have. I would have left earlier, and all of a sudden he got farther. Like, getting that real exposure to like what's really happening instead of in concept behind a training meeting or something. And the inauthenticity of a role play sometimes is powerful. So I guess for those that are interested in Siro, how do they find more? How do they reach out to you? How do you tell us, how do we connect? Sure.
So the caveat to this is sales has been going really well for us, and we're going to be focusing on product for the next 2 months. So probably towards the end of March, we're going to be basically shutting off the sales pipeline and not accepting new customers for a little bit. But if you're really excited about it, you want to talk to us before then, you can head to Siro.ai, Siro.ai, and click book a demo. We'll give you the full rundown, and we'll show you how to get started.
Love that. Yeah, guys, check them out. They were a vendor at DDDCon. Did you have a good time at DDDCon?
Oh, it was a blast. It was a really well-run conference. Vendors were treated quite well.
Thank you. And I we pride ourselves on our team and, the work that we put in to get it there. And I'm excited to see you guys at future events, man. It'll be fun.
Likewise, Sam.
Okay. All right. We'll see you guys. Hey, if you like this podcast, give it a little review, share it with somebody that needs some help with their training. Guys, we spend so much time recruiting and not enough actually developing our people to be human, like better all-stars. So guys, this is so important. I couldn't agree more. It's fun. Obviously being in the training world, I'm an advocate of it because I see results every day. And so take this stuff to heart. Again, remember the challenge. If you haven't trained today, go train today. And we'll see you guys on the next episode.